It was the summer of 1987, and Garden Lodge was quieter than usual. Freddie had returned early from a short trip to Austria with his friend Barbara. He had cut the visit short, and Jim could tell immediately why when he saw him. "I missed you," Freddie said, pulling Jim into a tight embrace. Jim smiled, feeling the warmth in Freddie's arms. It was the private, tender side of Freddie that few people ever saw. The side that loved, fully and openly. Life at Garden Lodge had begun to slow down. Freddie wasn't touring as he had in the past, and the wild parties and late nights that used to define him were fading into memory. Instead, he spent more time at home. He worked on music in his study, fussed over his cats, and insisted on long hot baths almost every day. "I could live in this tub forever," he said one afternoon, laughing, surrounded by bubbles. "You'd be like a boiled lobster," Jim teased. Freddie laughed, so hard that some bubbles spilled over the side of the tub. Those moments of laughter were bright and comforting, but beneath them lay a shadow that they could no longer ignore. AIDS was once something distant, had entered their lives personally. Freddie had been tested, and the results confirmed their worst fears. He was HIV positive. The words had struck him like a physical blow, and though he tried to carry on, he could not fully hide the fear and uncertainty they brought. For weeks, Freddie avoided speaking about it directly. He focused on his routines, on keeping the house lively, and on small comforts that made him feel in control. He rested more often, sometimes moving slower than usual, but always with a smile that tried to reassure Jim that he was okay. One evening, sitting quietly in the living room, Freddie spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Jim, I'm sick," he said, testing the words as if saying them out loud might make them real. Jim reached for his hand. "I know," he said. "We'll face it together." Freddie gave a faint nod and a smile, fragile smile. "Yes, together," he whispered. The days that followed were filled with small, ordinary moments that now carried a new weight. Freddie still bought Jim little gifts, like a model car he had been joking about for months, and they laughed at the new kitten that had joined the household. But even in those moments, the presence of AIDS was always there. Each laugh was tinged with worry. Every touch carried a quite constant awareness of the disease Freddie now lived with. One afternoon, as they were watering the garden, Freddie stopped and looked at Jim seriously. "You know, this doesn't have to stop us from living," he said. Jim nodded. "No," he agreed. "We take it one day at a time." In the kitchen they shared tea and toast, talking about music, the cats, and what they would do that day. Even chores became moments of connection. Freddie would sometimes frown at the way Jim placed a plate or poured milk. "You're making it all wrong," he would say, pretending to be angry but laughing almost immediately after. "I will never get it right, will I?" Jim replied, smiling. Freddie shook his head. "Not if I am here," he said. These little routines became their lifeline. Breakfast together, walks in the garden, long baths, and quiet evenings with music and conversations were always to hold on to life and love, even as a dangerous disease shadowed their eyes. Freddie's health was subtly changing. Some days he seemed tired without reason, or he needed to rest more after even minor activity. He sometimes held his chest or coughed quietly, signs that reminded Jim of the fragility of the life they now shared. At night they would sit together on the sofa, Freddie leaning on Jim's shoulder, sometimes talking, sometimes simply listening to the music they both loved. "Do you ever think about how much time we really have, Freddie asked quietly one evening. All the time, Jim admitted, but I also think about how much love we have right now. Freddie squeezed his hand and smiled faintly. That's what counts, he said. Even when fear crept in, Freddie maintained a remarkable strength. He joked, teased, and insisted on keeping the house full of life. Sometimes he would playfully chase the kittens, causing them to scatter, and Jim would laugh despite the tension that lingered in the air. Other times, Freddie would sing softly in the kitchen while making tea, a simple melody that seemed to keep the darkness at bay. Medical appointments became a regular part of their lives. Freddie would sometimes look anxious before visits, his fingers twisting in small nervous moments. Jim stayed by his side, holding his hand and reassuring him in simple words. We'll get through this, Jim would say. I know, Freddie replied, smiling weakly, as long as we have each other.